Hi, this is Declan Shalvey, former artist of Moon Knight, and you're listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast.
Yes, welcome back, loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. You are with both of your High Priests of Khonshu for this episode. I am one of them, Ray, and joining me is Rebecca. Rebecca, hello.
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 I find it really hard to introduce. Hi, guys. Nice to be back. Good.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you. Great to have you back, Rebecca, as well. Of course, trying to get Rebecca on for the new issues, but also for our idle chat segments, which will be all about understanding DID. So we're up to part 3 in this idle chat. So welcome, listeners. It should be a good one. Of course, before we kick off, last week I want a big thank you to Drew for coming on the show, and Drew is also one of the sponsors. You can listen to his music under the tag Tombz or LURKMUSICK in SoundCloud or Bandcamp. Also, Daniel Doing, a great cosplayer, and also his issue 5 of Fringe Night coming out. So check out his independent comic book, Fringe Night. It's on Patreon too if you want to support it. CLZ COMICS by Collectorz.com. Really great database. They've got now key appearances marked automatically for issues. So, for all those loving to catalogue their works, go check them out for sure. Very cheap price as well, affordable. And finally, Dreamland Comics from Schaumburg, Illinois. A fantastic online store for your back issue needs. So, Rebecca, I'm so glad to have you back on the show. We're winding down towards the end of the year, but I'm glad that we got to meet to have a little bit of a chin wag. And
we've got another issue to come, right, before the end of the year?
Yes. I think
yes.
December 22nd,
I think so,
right?
Maybe.
Yeah,
a Christmas issue.
Yeah,
nice.
We're going to have to plan that. Yes.
We'll plan that. Yeah, we'll have to plan that very carefully. But I have a little bit less work around that week, so it might be easier because of that. So, but yes, we'll do whatever. So, if we don't get to it immediately, blame Christmas, but we will get to it.
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely.
Very excited about this one.
Yes, and I've clocked off already from work, so mentally, so it's all good.
I mean, mentally, I clocked off a while ago. Yeah,
no,
I had a very crazy week this week, but cool. This has been interesting. I'm sorry we're delayed with this one. We had things happen to both of us.
Yeah,
that meant that it's been really hard to schedule this one, but we wanted to get it done. So
absolutely, and a huge thank you again for listeners that have seen on the tin, understanding DID. It's part 3. What we do is we have a fantastic loony member in the group, Leyna, part of a DID system, and they have helped us understand DID a bit more and kind of dispel some myths. We're up to our 3rd part now, so Leyna's submitted an essay which generally Rebecca and I will go through and just discuss just anything that we find interesting, just some things that maybe have surprised us or we've learnt, and we'll see how we go. Rebecca, you mentioned as well you've got handy the Jeff Lemire and Greg Small, issue 10.
Yes, issue 10, which is what this is based on. So pull out your issue 10s. It's quite an interesting one for me, obviously, because at the same time as it deals with the DID, it deals with you've got touches of the Judaism in there. I think this is also the issue I have signed by Mr. Smallwood.
Oh,
so,
nice. Yep. So, fantastic. Did he leave any special message, or is it just the signature? Or?
I have a little. No, there's a little Moon Knight remark on it. So I was very lucky, very very lucky to get it. So fantastic. It's like if you're talking about pride of place and all my sadness at not having the hardcover, looking at this cover sometimes makes it feel a bit better.
Nice. But don't forget as well, Rebecca, I think it's February or March.
I just ordered it this morning.
Oh,
I just
awesome.
ordered it. Literally before I came online, because I was looking at the hardcover on eBay and I was like, you know what, I just want the collection.
Yes.
So I'm stupid that I didn't buy the hardcover. That is on me. But I will order the paperback right now. And it comes out on my birthday, so it's kind of like a present to myself. So if anybody wants to know when my birthday is, it's around when it would be night. I also ordered the little Marvel verse one as well.
Yeah, I've noticed that's really like cheap compared to it. So I know they've released other Marvel verses of other characters. There must be just like is it like an anthology, right?
It's literally like a very brief intro to the character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if I just have a quick look at what it's got in it, it lists what it's got in it. So I think it's like obviously Werewolf by Night.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a look. It has Werewolf by Night 32 and 33, Moon Knight 13, number 80, Moon Knight Annual 2019, and material from the Amazing Spider-Man 1963.
Wow, so it's got the annual 2019 as well. That's interesting.
Yeah. I don't know why Amazing Spider-Man, I guess. Oh, I think that might be. I don't know why it's got that.
I think that's the one. I don't know. I think it's the one where he's in the coffin. I don't know. Yeah, it's. It must be some sort of.
Yeah, it's a Moon Knight centric issue. He steals some expensive loot to become the secretary of the National Crime Syndicate.
Okay. Right.
So it's an interesting mix. Some would say that it might set you up for the TV show.
Ooh, yeah, true.
I don't know. I think it's more just meant to be an introduction to the character and showing him with some of your faves.
Mm-hmm.
Usually in the UK we get a little Panini put out a collection for each of the TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
And films sometimes. Like yesterday I was at the cinema. Sorry, we're going off track here. Yesterday I was at the cinema. Like I popped into the newsagent because I really wanted chocolate, and they had the Eternals panini, the first 6 issues of the Eternals. There's a much cheaper way than buying the actual trade, but it is a trade, so I bought that. But they also had the One Division one and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier one. So they're usually just little collections of.
Okay, was the Eternals? Was that the latest Eternals run?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Because I was thinking I wanted to buy that in trade anyway, and I didn't know what they'd have in. I thought it might be the Neil Gaiman run or something, but no, it's the Kieran Gillen one. Okay. So I was like, okay. I mean, unfortunately, the second volume probably won't come out in the same format, but it's quite nice to have this one at least. So things I think I picked up while going to the cinema. Let's put it that way.
See, they say.
So I'm looking forward to them.
Yeah, they say chocolate's bad for you, so you know. Look what you got. Look what you got.
That's what I got instead. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Have we talked about? We have talked about the Eternals. I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I think we did it while I was driving.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah, we did.
So excited.
That was so funny.
Yeah.
I was typing and Ray was replying in voicemail.
Yeah. But I just watched it. It was good. Anyway, we're getting off a tangent, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. So anyway, so this issue 10, you said it's got big things in it, DID, but also the Judaism as well. So. Let's get into it. Rebecca, like always, we'll just do alternate paragraphs?
Yeah.
Cool. Do you want to kick off?
Yeah, sure, because it's a nice short. All right. Understanding DID Part 3. It's based around Lemire Smallwood 10, Death and Birth Part 1. Hello, fellow loonies, it's Leyna again. Here with another exploration of the representation of DID in Moon Knight comics. In this article, we'll explore topics such as the difference between imaginary friends and alters, the importance of internal worlds, the portrayal of mental health professionals in comics, and the definition and explanation of introject alters.
Oh, that's interesting, because I know
there's really interesting stuff in this.
Yes, we touched upon the introject alters before. Okay. And also difference between imaginary friends and alters, that would be cool. Yeah, this issue began some years ago in Chicago, although we can pinpoint it probably to mid to late 80s due to the items in Mark's room. That's true. A young Mark Spector is drawing with sidewalk chalk outside his apartment building when he meets another young boy about the same age who introduces himself as Stephen Grant. Mark takes Stephen up to his apartment to show him his bedroom as they chat about their dads, plans for the future and toys. It seems like a normal interaction between two boys that are becoming fast friends, until Mark's father walks in the room and we see from his perspective that Mark is the only young boy in the room.
That bedroom, that was
Cool.
That was a major point of our discussion about this issue. I seem to remember as
so.
trying to identify all the things in the bedroom.
A lot of pop culture, yeah, and it's just a fantastic art. Yeah, I remember.
No, it's just unbelievable. It was the Max Headroom thing, and his dad looks so great as well.
Yes.
I just thank you for bringing me back to Lemire Smallwood. I'm just once again blown away by the art. But yes, you can literally see and it ends with the that little section ends with the concern and sadness on his dad's face.
Mm-hmm.
But Mark doesn't, just carrying on as normal, playing with his toys.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I thought I'd clear my throat before I start this one. So, this initial scene in pages 1 to 4 exhibits two common misconceptions about DID. The first is that types of imaginary friends that many young kids create for themselves are similar to DID or can develop into DID. If anyone listening to this has that fear for their own children, I can reassure you that imaginary friends and alters are two entirely separate things. Imaginary friends are basically fictional playmates that a child invents in order to help them work out difficult thoughts or emotions, such as fears, anxieties, goals for the future. They're not classified as a mental disorder, and they're generally seen as a normal childhood phenomenon that children would grow out of. Alters, on the other hand, are a literal divergence of the child's sense of identity into two or more identities, which happens on a subconscious level due to intense trauma. Once a pattern of creating alters has been established, they can also be created from stressful situations or a general emotional need that the system has that cannot be met by any of the current alters. But these type of alters are still created on a subconscious level, not invented consciously.
Okay.
So that's the first thing.
Yes.
And I think reading it, I'm aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think reading this, we were aware of that, is what I should say. And almost willing as outsiders to excuse it as still better than what we'd had in the past.
Yeah.
But I think Leyna actually goes on to explain a much better way of seeing this.
Yeah. I mean, I see also as well. I mean, to be honest, you give me too much credit, Rebecca, when I first did read it, because I did, I did fall into the trap of, having this imaginary friend and associating that with his, because we all know that Mark Spector Moon Knight has.
No, that's what I mean.
Oh,
that's what I mean. I think we did that did trigger it, but I still thought this is better than how we've seen DID portrayed in past issues.
Right, yes. Yeah.
But I think Leyna goes on to sort of almost excuse us for that. So, but this is why it's so great to be learning about this. And I don't know, did you have a childhood imaginary friend? I don't think I did.
I didn't.
But I think I always wanted.
Me too. I always kind of.
But I also read Chucky very young, and then I didn't want one anymore.
Yeah. Oh, actually, that's a blast from the past. Yeah, I remember that.
Right. Yeah,
Chucky.
we're old, so but once I read Chucky. Very happy. But my sister had an imaginary friend, and nobody worried about it. So
it fascinated me. I always just wanted, like yourself, always wanted one, and just wanted to know.
Yeah, I wanted one, and I was like, why don't I have one? Like, do I feel that badly about myself that I don't even want a friend? Like,
and then you kind of go down the trap of trying to fabricate one. It's almost like falsely pretending to have one.
And it becomes this imaginary of imaginary. It's like I'm daydreaming about the imaginary friend I don't actually have. But I think a lot of parents do worry.
You're right,
and I don't think my parents did, but my parents were pretty chill about almost everything.
Yeah.
So I think when my sister had an imaginary friend, it was just okay. It's that stage of development. So
I think also it reminds me of that English Drop Dead Fred. Is that Drop Dead Fred?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? Yeah, that awesomely funny movie with Rick Mayall.
If I'd had one, I would have liked him.
Yeah, I would have loved one as well.
But not like Chucky.
No, not like Chucky. But in Drop Dead Fred, I think it's different because she takes him into her adulthood, and that's, I guess, when you do. And she is it Phoebe Cates? That's when you do start to worry. I guess you should worry if you do take it on, because as Leyna says, I think my impression is that, adults usually consider that the kids will kind of grow out of it. And as they grow up and they socialize more or whatever, or they create, real life friends, then that tends to go away. But I think it's only once they reach adulthood. But in this Lemire run, Mark is still a little boy, so
he's a kid, and still observant, clearly within the home, to be wearing his kippah indoors. So,
yes.
It's interesting, but it's interesting because you don't really see if his dad's wearing one, but you have to assume he is, because you have to assume they're wearing one all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If he's wearing one now.
Yeah. And also as well with DID, I guess, just from what we had learnt before as well, it's not necessarily, you don't necessarily see a vision or image in front of you of someone else. Like you I guess, it's all within
more
the
internalized
thing, exactly. So, point of difference there. But I think Lemire, I do believe he kind of used that imaginary friend thing to kind of insinuate, maybe the start of what Mark may have. But as Leyna said, it's kind of chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
So going on, Leyna says, having said all of that, it is possible for DID systems to mistake actual alters for imaginary friends. I have talked to several other DID systems online who have said that after they were diagnosed as DID and started to meet their alters, they realised that they had talked to some of them when they were a child, but later dismissed it as imaginary friends that they grew out of. It's also possible for a DID system to also have imaginary friends in addition to alters. When we were younger, we had an imaginary friend, and many years later found out that it was invented by one of our alters named Denise D. It was her role in our system to keep the secret of our multiplicity from ourselves by keeping our internal and external worlds separate. And she must have thought we were getting too close to discovering our internal world and needed to be distracted. Ah, interesting. However, it seems that Lemire was trying to imply that Stephen Grant was an imaginary friend of Mark's that later evolved into an actual alter. And that's not the way DID works. So,
I think that's what I said. I think I like Leyna's. I like Leyna. I mean, I'm fascinated by the idea that, of course, anyone with DID could have an imaginary friend as well that's separate from the DID, but also that they could mistake an alter for an imaginary friend, because that makes sense within what we all know about children and imaginary friends, and I agree. I'm not sure that's what Lemire was going for.
No,
I think it's too good an understanding, and I would love it to have been. But but also, we still all know that this is a run that I think at least tries to tackle these things better and using better terminology and stuff like that. I am not excusing that. I just think that I just keep wanting to flag it up because just remember, I just think how badly it could have been done. And but I mean, of course, why shouldn't someone with DID also have imaginary friends? And again, each of their alters could have an imaginary friend. They could have imaginary friends that knew several alters, I guess. I don't know. That's a more in-depth question for Leyna at some point. But I think that's kind of a crux of what she's explaining to us here. And I thought that's the key, is that it doesn't work. What the implication that Lemire's making doesn't work. Yeah. But there is a way it could have worked.
I wonder also as well, I mean, if Leyna has, I think, brought this up with having writers similar to how Jed McKay got some consultation on Judaism, maybe having a consultant on DID. I mean, I don't know whether time frames and deadlines. They should. But
I know it's absolutely true. If you can run things past a couple of Jewish writers, you can find either a psychologist or someone with DID to at least take out abject fallacies. You still. I mean, you're still not going to get everything perfect. You ask two Jews things, you'll end up with three answers. But I think it is incumbent on them more and more to check certain things, and I think those are those are the things that should be checked. Is that I haven't made total balls up of it kind of thing.
Yeah, because we are living.
It doesn't have to be perfect.
No,
it doesn't have to be perfect because the characters you're writing aren't encyclopedically knowledgeable about the topics.
True.
Like Mark doesn't have to be a Jewish scholar.
Exactly.
But he needs to know the things that somebody growing up with a rabbi would know, even if they've forgotten most of them.
Yeah.
He doesn't need, and so he needs to know about his DID and how it especially as we now know that he's now seen several mental health professionals.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly.
So I do think it is increasingly incumbent on any writers to do the most perfunctory of checks, which is asking someone they don't mind helping for money or whatever they want in return, but preferably pay them.
True. I mean,
I'm sure Jewish comic friends of Jed didn't charge him, but I think in general it should be a proper transaction.
Yeah,
for that kind of.
I mean,
in the same way as Al had a consultant for the trans representation in Immortal Hulk.
Okay, right. Okay,
yeah.
Well,
So
I mean,
I
that just
think
makes sense. I mean,
it does. It just makes sense.
We're at that stage where readers are a lot more savvy, and writers are on these, and
also
details.
The time frames you have between it being written and it being drawn. Yes, we know comics are churned out to a certain extent, but the writing is always the first thing done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that can be checked before, way before lettering comes in. So
yeah.
Yeah,
no, for sure. But yeah, it's interesting. Interesting how. I love it, Leyna. How you, giving the benefit to Lemire as well. Expanding on it, not just saying, look, it's not. That's just not the way. Trying to find out potentials in what he's writing. I think that's good.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's your paragraph.
No, I just did it, but I will do another one.
Oh no, I did
it. Okay, fine. All right, but if we go with the assumption that Stephen was already an actual alter that only seemed like an imaginary friend at the time, that brings us to another common misconception about DID, displayed in the opening scene. Many fictional stories about DID systems show one of the identities seeing one or more of the others in the external world, i.e. as hallucination. I've heard that this can happen, but it's nowhere near as common as movies and TV would have you believe. It's far more common for us to only see and hear each other in the internal world of our own mind, not as hallucinations coming from outside ourselves. It's probably portrayed that way for the sake of clarity for the audience, but it leads to perpetuating the confusion between DID and schizophrenia, in which hallucinations are more common. Absolutely true.
Yes, and
on every ground.
Yeah.
It's absolutely sure it's the easiest way to show an audience.
Yeah.
But it is absolutely why we all misattributed DID in a lot of TV shows, why we have a lot of misconceptions about schizophrenia, about DID, about multiple personality disorder. Is that the official name for that now? I don't know.
Yeah.
I hold my hands up if I'm wrong on that. I don't want to, but all of these things that TV and film have linked that aren't necessarily as equivalent as we've been led to believe when we were younger.
Yeah. It would be interesting.
No, I was just going to say, it's like there's a current TV show where I think they're doing that, but not in the same way. I don't want to spoil anything there, and it's a very current TV show. But they're trying to show someone who's got a power that isn't easy to show.
Oh.
And I don't know how they're gonna. They've kind of failed in doing it so far.
Oh.
And I'm watching it with Zoe, who's not read the books and isn't very clear about what the power is. That's kind of how I'm aware of. It's not because it is very hard to show internalized mental things, and that's going to be one of the interesting things about the Moonlight TV show.
Well, I was about to say, it'd be interesting. I mean, from what we saw in that teaser, and again, it's only a teaser, 30 seconds, but it's interesting to see how that is represented. The most obvious thing was the reflections in the
Oh, really? Because
glass.
I thought I was going to say the most obvious thing was the accent, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah, that's oh god, yeah, there was that. There was that.
but
think
I would almost rather they had
Yeah.
the terrible accents than they misrepresented and made it too imaginary friendly. You know, like too hallucination-y. Like, you know, like you gotta. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they do it, and it's going to be interesting to see when they sort of how they evolve Mark's mental health
Yes.
exposition, like whether he had it as, like, you know, from what we've learned from Leyna, something has to have happened to him as a child. Now, whether he got the diagnosis when he was young, or we only get the diagnosis way after the Khonshu issue stuff, is going to be interesting to me, like how they deal with that. Because he's either somebody who's known from X number of years that he's got DID and somehow and has done these things afterwards, or he isn't and it becomes diagnosed later.
Yeah, quite interesting.
So,
those two scenarios.
That is going to be interesting, and that's why it's interesting to hear from Leyna on some of these things, that the misconceptions, because there are also misconceptions Mark and his family could have. So I'm very interested. I mean, like, obviously, from day one, this has always been the fear about the TV show. But yeah, I think the hallucination. I mean, like, where you can accept, because we also don't know if these hallucinations that we saw in the trailer with the mirror and stuff like that is a direct result of what's happened with being brought back to life from Khonshu.
True. I mean, yeah.
I mean, you're right. We've had 30 seconds. We cannot possibly. Yeah. I mean, we will try, but we can't possibly extrapolate to how they're going to deal with these things. I just really hope they deal with everything sensitively, and that they've had consultants along.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
but we will.
I mean, alongside the Jed McKay run as well, as you say, Rebecca, we've got that other aspect which is outside of DID, and which Jed has made sure he's distinguished apart from DID. You know, Khonshu's effect on Mark's brain.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to try and, I guess, represent in the TV show, but then try to distinguish between. Will be quite interesting.
And you know what else I hope they do? I hope they have. I hope they put some information up to go alongside the TV show.
Oh, if it'd be like Prime Video, like Amazon, where you have the X-ray or whatever, that would be cool. You know how?
I mean, like, if you want to know more about the subjects we're talking about here, this is where to go.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, if you have concerns about mental health, this is where you go. And I just hope they I would hope that, like, especially because there's only so much they can cover in a TV show, that they would either have a list of resources, or they would, like, offer people places to go.
Yeah. Did they?
Not in case they.
Did you know if they did that?
I don't think they've done.
For Legion?
I don't think they've done it.
No. Okay.
I wonder if they did do it for Legion. You know, I think there was some information about Legion, but Legion is. It's a little bit different.
Okay.
Because it wasn't a fully Disney thing. It was like Fox Disney thing.
Yep.
And I'd have to go back and look, but I thought there was something, but we don't know. I wouldn't say yes right now.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's say no.
Let's say no. Yeah, true. Sure. Look, sorry, Rebecca. I've been bouncing whether I should try my my Jake Lockley accent, but I'll just maybe later.
Please.
If it's Jake Lockley, I don't even know who it is.
So no one does.
No one does. The next paragraph, Leyna continues, in the next scene on pages 5 to 8, we see present-day Mr. Knight visiting Jenna at her diner in a New Egypt version of New York City. When he tells Jenna that he needs to go back to the mental hospital from which he escaped in a previous issue of this run, she asks why on earth he would want to go back there. He tells her that he thinks that all of this, or at least some of it, might be in his head. When Jenna protests that she feels real, Mark tells her, "You're real. At least you're my memory of you. That's real. It's really hard to explain. I don't fully understand it myself. I can definitely empathise with this type of confusion. while it's unlikely that Mark is literally hallucinating pyramids and sand on top of the actual skyline of New York City, it's not all that uncommon for people with DID to have some confusion between the internal and external worlds. It's possible that all of this is occurring within Mark's mind, but it seems so real to him that he thinks it might be the external world. Then again, with this being the Marvel Universe, this could also be some literal spiritual realm to which Mark has been transported by Khonshu. Yeah, or possibly Anubis. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think we ever came down on what we thought.
No.
Whether we thought it was real or not. Because it is, as Leyna says, it is almost this kind of dreamlike possibility where it's like they're both possible. But I like big props to Mark for, if he does think it's all in his head, for eating pancakes. I too, if in a diner in my own head, would be eating.
Well, you got to treat yourself, you know.
Yeah, you have to. You have to get the food sorted, you know.
But that's such an interesting thing. I mean, just going back into Lemire's writing of Jenna, like saying, like she, but again, of course, this could be a mind spin because it'd be Mark thinking that he's conjuring up this thought of Jenna thinking, you know, but I feel real.
I think it is that I'm just so confused, you know, and he knows how down to earth she is, so of course that would be the kind of thing she said, is that I feel real. Yeah. So it's all you know, and the sand makes it, to be honest, the sand makes it feel dreamlike.
It does,
but we know it could be happening.
Wistful.
I mean, we know it could be happening because it's a very Marvel Universe sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, we don't see many other people though. I mean, that's the other thing as well.
No,
so.
You see barely anyone else on the streets. Yeah. You see no one else. Yeah, you see only the main players.
Yeah. Interesting and great that, I mean, the point from Leyna being basically there is that ambiguity for people with the DID potentially of extrapolating what is internal and what is external, which would make it a very, I guess, would be very challenging at times. You know?
I mean, if you just feel what it's like to feel confused about anything, and then widen that out to feel it about identity issues and whether things are real, and it is a real stop you in your moment thing about what other people have to deal with.
Yeah.
On top of all the other things about life, and but you know, that's not what this is about. I mean, it's about understanding it so that we can be compassionate about it, but also understand where we've been wrong in the past and give us another level of understanding into this character.
Yeah.
And some of what he's having to deal with alongside all the superheroics, which reminds me later, towards the end, remind me to tell you what somebody said in a Discord the other day.
Okay.
Crazy. Right. So Mark tells Gina he has to save Crawley's soul from Anubis. Obviously, why he wants to go back, which may seem like it shouldn't be all that important if he thinks it's not real anyway. It could be that Mark thinks he can't afford to take that chance if there's even a slight possibility that it might be the actual Crawley's soul. Or maybe he realizes that even if it is within his own mind, it might still be important to see it all through to the end. Sometimes it's necessary for alters to explore our internal world to learn more about ourselves and how our mind works. The understanding of ourselves that can be gained from these types of internal quests can often help us function better in the external world. We've gone on several of these quests over the years, and it's helped us to understand our own mind and how we can work together better as a system.
So, I mean, one of the questions then I would have to Leyna is, because it does fascinate me, is just how is this undertaken? Like these quests. I mean, is this laying down in the evening, you know, and almost like meditating, or is it something that happens kind of beyond our kind of, I guess, interpretation of time, and it's kind of just instinctual? Yeah, I mean, I found this interesting.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it is interesting, but I guess it's also pretty different from every system. System.
Yeah.
But with some similarities of, I guess, it's internal reflection. But when you and I think internal reflection, we might be thinking about like almost meditating or, you know, thinking about a problem. For them, for people with in a system, it might be more like playing out conversations and finding the right alter to speak to about certain topics. But that'd be fascinating to know if it's not too personal or intrusive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, for sure. It's just, because there's the, what's the adjective, Rebecca? Explorative nature of it.
Exploratory
nature of it as well. But there would be something quite, scary, like because you don't know what you might find during these things.
It's always terrifying to learn more about yourself, but in this case, hopefully with the resolution of alters working better together.
Yes.
But also, I always come back to I wonder how it feels to know that other people aren't having to deal with this as well. Like
yeah. Like this is their day-to-day thing. This is their way of living and other people, like, I can say things like, oh, me and Ray just sit back and think about what to make for dinner, sit back and meditate for half an hour. And I never want to come across as insensitive about it, but I just feel so not sympathetic. I can't be empathetic. I don't know what it's like. I guess just realizing that other people are out there with hardships that you don't have, and like I know not everyone will be it's something that other people don't have to deal with on a day-to-day basis that is making your life a little bit more complicated, let's say. I don't want to exactly. It would have to be.
It does have to be, because we're not doing that.
Yeah, it's an extra level of I guess of managing, like, your identities and internally. So there's extra effort involved.
I understand. I mean, obviously this comes from trauma, and from what I understand, from what Leyna said previously and others have said previously, is that once you start understanding it and you start to come together as a system, there is a level of support there as well. It's not like, I don't want to make out that it's like that there isn't not a benefit to it as well, but like a positive.
Yes,
I don't want to sit here going, oh, I feel so bad for people, but but there is, it's come from a very traumatic moment, and there is a support system there that probably was missing elsewhere. And anyway, I just feel like I just want to apologize every time I try and say anything about it. So
that's. I mean, it's all right. We're learning as well. I mean, we're asking.
This is all up in me. I don't know what I'm saying, and please correct me.
Yes.
And I just don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. So.
No, for sure. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure as well, Leyna as well. Please pull us up if we do.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Yeah,
it's not intentional. It's just. It's coming from my mind, so...
yes,
right.
Our curiosities. So after this scene, we flash back again to Mark's childhood when Mark and his father are meeting with a child psychiatrist. It's not specifically stated whether this is their very first appointment with the doctor, but it seems like it's at least in the fairly early stages of treatment. After a brief conversation, the doctor tells Mark to wait out in the hall so he can talk with Mark's father privately. Mark obeys the doctor, but of course, since he knows the conversation will be about him, he tries to listen through the door. He only catches pieces of the discussion, but what he does hear speaks volumes. I would like to compliment the letterer of this issue, VC's Corey Petit, for the interesting way in which he portrayed the letters fading in and out to show the limited audibility. Yeah, true. I mean, that was really cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. Do you mind, Rebecca? I'll just take that little snippet after that page.
No, go for it, yeah.
I want to explore each piece of what Mark hears in depth, because even though it may seem plausible enough, it actually portrays several misunderstandings about the way the mental health profession works, at least from my own experience as someone who has been through a lot of therapy for many years. Yeah. A nice, cool scene, but I feel, Rebecca, the subsequent paragraph will kind of delve into.
I thank you so much for this. So the first clip he hears is very worried about serious disorder. Right, so Leyna says it's very unlikely, based on what Mark and his father told the psychiatrist, that he would immediately diagnose Mark as DID. Even in adults, statistics have shown that people with DID are usually misdiagnosed for the first 5 to 7 years of their therapeutic treatment, which is shocking.
Yeah,
like in terms of being able to letting someone start to learn to handle it. Like it's shocking in the sense of like that this is delayed, but I guess hey, getting a DID diagnosis as a child is extremely rare, almost unheard of. It's far more likely that the psychiatrist would have told Rabbi Spector that his son had created some imaginary friends, and this isn't unusual for children, but Mark should probably have some therapy to help him work through whatever issues are leading him to feel the need for imaginary friends.
Which you think is sound advice. Yeah, so
I think that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so he might be jumping the gun a bit there, or maybe Mark is listening to some totally other conversation about something else.
I think Leyna's got it right.
Yeah, and absolutely. So I think it's jumping. Fair enough. But again, I mean. Just looking at it from all aspects as well, Rebecca, just with the format of the comic issue and stuff, I guess Lemire had to kind of speed things through a little. I mean, that's why he's kind of... I
guess his options were doing a time skip to when Mark was a bit older.
Yeah. Yep. Yes.
But, yeah, I mean, like... But yeah, it's a choice. It's a choice, and it's probably a choice made out of slight ignorance on that, or just wanting to compress the time.
Yeah, that's what I think. But you're right. Yeah, it could be a bit of both, actually. Yeah. So.
Yeah, or it may be that of the incredibly rare. It's incredibly rare, except in comics, like proviso. It's incredibly rare for people to have. And I don't mean to make light of what Leyna's saying here, because honestly, what she says is absolutely right.
Yeah.
But I just want that extremely rare thing of comics of having all these people suddenly find each other. But in terms of educating people about therapy and diagnosis, it's not helpful. But
no, for sure. So the next bit of, I guess, conversation, dissociative spectrum, distinct identities. Even if Mark were diagnosed as DID, this terminology probably would not have been used back in the mid to late 80s. Oh yeah, of course, I like how Leyna's timestamped this, because it is established at the beginning with his toys and stuff. Yeah. Back then, it would have been known as multiple personality disorder. It didn't
get... there we go.
Yeah.
that's where that comes in, so I'll apologise for my previous, but yeah.
And it didn't get changed to dissociative identity disorder until 1994. It was still classified under the category of dissociative disorders back then, and there are other dissociative disorders such as dissociative amnesia, depersonalization, derealization, and fugue. But it is highly unlikely that a psychiatrist in that time period would have used the terminology dissociative spectrum to describe Mark's condition. My guess is that Lemire was trying to equate it with the terminology that people use for the autism spectrum. Yeah, actually, probably today. But as far as... Yeah, me too. But as far as I'm aware, I don't think that type of terminology is often used when discussing dissociative disorders, even in current times. So it might have been just like a little... a bit of an ignorance.
Sounds like a slight misunderstanding. We know he might not have known it was DID, but it's something dissociative.
Yes.
And not realising that actually, it's not a spectrum.
Yeah.
I'm not laughing. I don't know why I'm laughing. No. Sorry.
It's kind of like, it's similar to, say, if a comic book writer has written something about your profession, and it's just written in a very kind of, obviously... lay kind of terms.
Happens quite often.
It happens,
with librarianship.
Yes, yeah, I'd imagine.
Which was my previous profession. People get it wrong all the time, but that's fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same kind of impact, but yeah, it just makes me laugh. Like people think libraries are sort of stuck in the 70s, but yeah. So the next snippet of conversation, but he needs treatment immediately. Therapy is not enough. Medication. It's very unlikely the psychiatrist would be that harsh with his language towards Mark's father. Talk therapy is actually the most effective method for treating DID, so I'm not sure why the therapist would immediately dismiss it as being not enough. Also, there's no medication that's specifically made to treat DID. However, there are medications that can help with symptoms that often go with DID, such as depression, anxiety, and confusion. But these types of medications can often have harsher side effects on children than they do on adults, so it probably wouldn't be the first treatment recommended for young Mark. And I'll add that I think there's medication for schizophrenia.
Okay. So we can see kind of the wheels coming off a little in Lemire's research. I think. I mean, because I have a friend with schizophrenia who's on medication for it, so. I don't know if it's something they prescribe to kids, but I know she was diagnosed relatively young, like in her teens. So, and also interesting that Leyna is talking about how the therapies wouldn't be so harsh, in saying.
I mean, right? I mean, it makes sense. It's like, and if you've got an appointment with a psychiatrist, that's stage one. So, like, therapy seems like always the way you should go for, especially for kids.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But hey.
Again, unless, of course, Mark is misinterpreting. But, I doubt it.
Yeah, or they're making it all scary, or it's somehow to tie in with the whole mental hospital allegory of the whole run. Who knows? Because there's obviously a lot of medication involved in that. And who knows?
Yeah. So we get more snippets during this scene. Mark also overhears possibly time away from home, more aggressive methods of treatment. So Leyna continues, here the psychiatrist seems to be referring to institutionalizing Mark and possibly things like shock therapy, which we know in the Lemire run, we do see it. So it's kind of... It's what I associated with, I guess, when I read it. Options like this would almost certainly not be discussed with the father of a child as soon as they were diagnosed. First of all, the days of people with mental illnesses being locked away for years simply because they have a diagnosis have been over for decades. There are still behavioural health facilities, but they are not anything like what you see in the movies like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. In modern times, people are usually only institutionalised if they are a danger to their self or others, if they have committed a crime while not in a coherent state of mind, or if they decide they need help to overcome an addiction or other issue. It would probably not be recommended for a child as young as Mark unless he was actively harming himself, and several other options to help him had been tried and failed. The simple fact of being diagnosed with DID would definitely not be enough to warrant such an extreme response. So, yeah.
And that's something I do know because my sister, she was then mental health social worker for a 5-year period of her professional life. She was one of the people who could certify sectioning people, which is the institutionalizing it, and it's pretty rigid, the rules about like how bad it has to be and how many people have to sign it off and things like that. And it does seem like shocking that this would be like the father of a child would be one of the initial conversations, because that's obviously gonna terrify you. It'd be terrifying.
Oh, would be. It would be.
And it'd be terrifying for a child to hear. I mean,
exactly.
And even if the child didn't fully understand it, it would be, that would be running away from home moment for me.
It'd be rather insensitive, I think, to do that.
So I'll finish off So as for shock therapy, that is sometimes still used, but only, again, in extreme cases, and I don't think it would ever be used on a child as young as Mark. It's a very controversial treatment nowadays. There are some who swear by it, such as the late Carrie Fisher, who claimed it helped tremendously with her bipolar disorder, even though she admitted that it caused her to lose a lot of memories of her past. Our system has never had to have shock therapy, and personally we're grateful for that. We've talked to some other DID systems who have had it done, and it seemed to do more harm than good for them, often causing the creation of more alters who have intense phobias of electricity. I've heard similar things, is that it can be good, but it's definitely out of favour now.
I'm wondering also as well, Rebecca, I mean, again, just like looking at it a step back as well, and I know the idea of us going through this issue is to focus in on the DID, but I'm just wondering whether, issue 10, it's kind of like a flashback to Mark's childhood, but it's probably through the eyes of Mark's, or through the narrative of Mark's mind as well. So potentially that could be colouring why things are so
I agree.
Extreme.
I feel, it could also be why ages are wrong.
Yes.
There's a lot of ways we can excuse this. And I'm not saying we should or shouldn't either way.
No.
Because you're not wrong. This is coming through, the interspersed stories we're getting is he's not sure about his mind. And reality and his memories and we know the whole mental asylum thing with the Egyptian gods is a little bit surreal. There's a lot of surreal going stuff, the space wolves. There's a lot of surreal stuff going on as well at the same time as this. And I think a lot of it is to unbalance us. But you're right, we're getting the narrative is Mark's memory.
It's his account.
Which we know might not be he could have been older when he had this. He could not have heard those, but there'd be things he feared. But all we can really work on is the text we have as well. And especially in terms of using the text as a way to explore DID.
True.
I think we can come back to it and we can explain all of it narratively and say these are the reasons why. But actually, it's giving us this opening to talk about. So we might as well,
that's true.
And that's why we're thinking about them as they are.
Exactly.
So nobody needs to. Anyone who's coming at it from the other side is we're not dismissing that. We're just sort of saying, but let's take what's in the comic to learn about the ID with the resource of Leyna.
Exactly.
Because me and Ray wouldn't give you anything like this level of insight.
No, exactly. We wouldn't know where to start.
As you know, we would be stumbling through it. So,
come on, focus, Ray. Come on. Next one, Mark's attempted eavesdropping is interrupted by a voice behind him asking what he is doing. When he says that he is listening to the doctor talk to his dad, the voice tells him that man in there is not your true father. I am. Mark turns to see Khonshu in his bird-skulled appearance from the Ellis and Shelby run of Moon Knight. Khonshu then tells Mark, "Soon you will come to me, and you will be complete." I'm getting some serious Darth Vader vibes here. Yeah, me too, Leyna.
Especially as he had a Darth Vader sticker on his bedroom door.
Yeah.
It's all coming together for me now.
it's a tight bit of writing here. When Mark's father comes out of the psychiatrist's office to tell Mark that he's very sick and they will have to send him to a place where they can help him get better, he apparently doesn't see Khonshu. It seems that only Mark sees Khonshu as he tells Mark, "I'm waiting." And these pages are what, this is weird to me again, and this is where I would go with the argument about Mark's memory not being. It's because this is adding a whole layer of seeing Khonshu before. No, it does.
He even joined the CIA. Never mind the Merc thing, and
that's weird. It really does put an origin in the spin. The origin in the spin by having it this early.
It also puts in the is this right? Is this does it work? Can we work this out? Can we?
Yeah.
That was kind of one of the sort of shocking conversations of this issue. Is or maybe Mark's remembering it at a different age, or maybe it's unsettling us.
It is. Yeah. I mean, the whole run was very I mean, not unsettling, but it was just. It was open to a lot of things.
It was almost unanchored in Moon Knight runs. So, which is why I always said it was going to be impossible to come in and properly follow it up. Because it left us with so many uncertainties.
Yeah. Or drop someone who's interested in Moon Knight. Oh, go read the Lemire run. I mean, that good luck.
Yeah, and it's which is funny because obviously it is one of my favourite run.
Yeah.
But it's not the one I would say start with because you can't. You need to know something about the character before you're questioning things. So here we go with, I think Leyna's about to make the same point. Throughout the story arc, it seems Lemire is leaving it up to the interpretation of the reader as to whether Khonshu is an actual Egyptian god or an aspect of Mark's mental health issues. There's been lots of debate over this over the years, but personally, I think it's entirely possible that it could be both. It's not all that uncommon among DID systems to have a certain type of alter called an introject. These are alters that are based on either fictional characters or real people that exist in the external world. They're basically the DID system's headcanon version of that person, based on their perception of what that person is like. Sometimes this can be a person who is one of their perpetrators because they feel like they need to keep the abuse going, or because it's all they know, or it could be someone, whether real or fictional, makes the system feel comfortable as a way of alleviating the pain of trauma.
Well, it's definitely not the latter. So,
yeah. I have always liked the idea of it being both, ever since Marvel started to play with it. So I am fully on board with Leyna here, and it's nice to have an explanation of how that works within a proper, like a DID system in the real world, as opposed to in comics, is what I mean by a real DID system. Because we have already shown that Marx has been up and down on how it's portrayed, and again, I still have that kind of, would Khonshu have come to him this young? And maybe this is a sign that none of this can be trusted. But it's also really interesting insight in his view of Khonshu, and as an introject alter, sparring with his father as paternal figure is extremely interesting.
I think this
is the dude who raised him from the dead versus the dude who raised him in life.
Yes,
that was a very positive way of putting it for me. So you may all use that in your wiki summary of issue 10.
Yeah, I like this idea, but I also like the idea of this coupled with what we're talking about. It's up to the interpretation of the reader. Oh, actually, sorry, of Mark actually not remembering correctly things, and things are being misplaced. And so in his mind, again, in my headcanon, maybe he did come across Khonshu later on when he was a merc, but he's also then had an introject. I don't know if that works then, because then he would have been a bit older. I think actually Leyna was saying that you don't, DID systems don't create introject alters later on, I think. Anyway, that's probably something, Leyna, that you may clarify. Yeah. But no, I like this idea that it could be both. Yeah. I think it's really good. It certainly would go some way in explaining, or not explaining, but of kind of making sense out of what Lemire is kind of just touching upon. So yeah. But very good, very cool. Leyna continues. Sorry, Rebecca, unless you had anything else to add?
No.
So Leyna continues. Often, when these introject alters first come into existence, they will believe they literally are that person. It is important for them to learn to come to terms with the fact that although they may be a version of that person, they are actually an alter in a DID system. This can be very difficult for them because it feels like an invalidation of who they think they are, but they need to accept it, because if they don't, it can create a lot of internal and potentially external conflicts. It could even be lethal, like for instance, if they believed that they were bulletproof or had the ability to fly or heal from injury. But it's important to also keep in mind that although they are not really the person or character that they thought they were, they are no less real than any of the other alters. Once they have accepted the reality of this situation, they can start forming their own sense of identity as an alter, which will of course be influenced by their own experiences as part of their DID system. So as time goes by, they will become less of a carbon copy of the person or character that they were originally based on. So yeah, this is interesting because I know that Leyna has Leyna's part of a system that some of the alters are based on. I think they mentioned
that's
mutants.
The next paragraph.
Oh,
that's
okay,
yes. Don't get ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
But I think it is interesting because I think she nailed it earlier when she was saying they're basically the headcanon version of that person. So they're the facts. I mean, like where they can be a facsimile of some of the fictional characters because you can have all that information. If they're of a real person, they can only ever be your impression of that person or what you know about that person.
Yeah, true.
And I understand. Yeah, it would be really hard to learn that you were actually an alter and come to terms with it.
That would be like heartbreaking, wouldn't it? I mean,
I mean, I don't know about heartbreaking, but like it's definitely a level of self-realization that, again, most of us don't have to go through. Like of sort of questioning what's real about yourself.
Yeah. But to be told essentially that you're not real, if indeed this introject alter is, living. I guess breathing,
I guess there's ways and means of doing it, but effectively it is. But like. That's the kind of thing that does give me a great insight into good writing about Mark and that uncertainty and the internal struggles that he would be going through. Yeah. And like while we joke about it, we don't joke about it, but while we raise that conflict that Marvel has created about is Khonshu real or not, it kind of takes it to another level when that's actually could be going on with inside Mark as well. Like we know Mark yells it at Khonshu at times, you're not real, you're just in my head. Yeah. But I don't think we mean it, that's not in the same sense as you're just in my head because you're an alter. It's like, it's just, he's like, I don't believe in you as a god. It's fascinating.
Yeah, for sure.
But then you get better writing of it where he does, and it is more like he's an alter. Like, I think more of the recent stuff is better on that.
Yes, yeah.
And then you get the Lemire run where he's uncertain of everything, and so are we.
Yeah, exactly. Open to interpretation.
Yeah. So Leyna then writes, in our system, we have a few alters that are either introjects or introject adjacent. We have a pair of identical twin sisters based on fictional characters from a story that Doug, our Doug, wrote. But since Doug never got around to finishing that story, the fictional character versions of them weren't fully fleshed out. So the alter versions of them didn't have a lot to pattern themselves after besides their names and appearances. It's important to note here that even though these introject alters were based on characters that someone from our own system created, that doesn't mean that we invented these alters on purpose. I think that is an interesting distinction there. The creation of these alters still happened on a subconscious level because of a traumatic event. Our subconscious mind just chose to base them on these characters from Doug's memories of the story that he wrote. The other introject adjacent alters we have are very loosely based on two characters from Marvel Comics, Rachel Summers of the X-Men and Danielle Moonstar, aka Mirage, of the New Mutants. But in the case of these two, it was pretty much just their physical appearance, and in the case of Rachel, her first name, they're based on these characters. They don't have superhero costumes, they don't have the mutant powers in the Eternal World, and they don't really identify as those characters. So it's more a case of inspired by rather than based on in their cases. It's also impossible for buildings and other locales in the Eternal World to be based on real life or fictional places. And we used to have a mansion in our Eternal World that was loosely inspired by Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. Can you tell what big So this is interesting. Yeah. Have we talked about buildings and locales in the Eternal World?
This is so cool.
So Leyna, more on that sometime, please.
Yes, please.
On the fleshing out of the world. I think that plays into Ray talking about how some of these realizations come about internally and how those quests happen. It's like, what is there like around the altars? Like, what is that? The world, the geography.
Because it now seems
that's fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
It makes total sense, especially if when you say things like going on quests to understand this or to do that. That it wouldn't be this kind of just people in this blackness of our mind. It would that there would be. We all know that when we have daydreams, when we have dreams, we're fully capable of having entire landscapes, and so that's actually very interesting as well. So I'd like to ask not just about how they happen generally, but like these specific ones. So this Xavier's School, is that somewhere that the system uses for something, or is it just as a kind of, oh, that's cool?
You mean like just like a backdrop?
Out the world.
Oh, okay.
Flesh out the world, or something that has a purpose. And is that something all DID systems have, like significant buildings, locales, or is it that just So that's a question for maybe understanding DID 4 or 5. Whenever you want to get around. I don't know what Leyna's thinking of doing next, so I don't want to get into that. So I don't want to preempt.
But I mean that's true as well, because when I did ask that earlier, my mind was going towards more of a, I mean, not like the black space and people standing around, but like even a more abstract it's a bit hard to imagine, but just an abstract interaction between, yourselves.
I think I was thinking more like homes you've lived in, and
Right.
or like places you went, like things that were, used to, not used to you, but like, I sometimes think about my childhood homes, and
What's
I can
familiar?
only remember I can
Yeah.
only remember like the layout of 1 or 2 rooms, or the garden, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I can imagine them kind of melding into this kind of my fortress of solitude kind of thing, like be all these bits and patterns. So it'd be interesting to know, like, now that's been mentioned, is what the sense of that is for.
Yeah, I'm very curious to know Leyna as well. So yeah, great question as well, Rebecca. Going on, Leyna says, getting back to the Marvel character that this article is supposed to be about, my interpretation of the issue of whether Khonshu is real is this. Mark really was chosen by the actual being known as Khonshu, whether he was a literal Egyptian god or an alien being or whatever the case may be. And this is probably the first time that Khonshu reached out to contact Mark. But sometime in the intervening years, Mark's mind may have created an introject alter based on Khonshu. Yeah, that's what I was kind of like edging towards, Rebecca, because of the trauma of having the actual Khonshu messing with his head. This, of course, makes things more ambiguous, because Mark would have a difficult time determining which Khonshu is talking to him. Yeah, absolutely adds another layer of what is real or what is, in his head, or what is Khonshu inspired. Yeah.
As the scene transitions again to the present, we see Mr. Knight once again hearing the call of Khonshu and going down into the sewer to confront Anubis, who still holds Crawley captive. Mr. Knight tries to renegotiate to free Crawley, and Anubis at first refuses, saying their deal is finished. But when Mr. Knight presses the matter, Anubis finally admits there is something he lost in the Overvoid, and if Mr. Knight can retrieve it, he will release Crawley. However, Anubis won't tell Mr. Knight what it is, saying only, "You'll know it when you see it." Crawley tries to tell Mr. Knight not to accept this new deal, just to let him go, but Mr. Knight says he can't do that and dives into the empty space around the ferry, carrying Anubis and Crawley. Crawley looks very chill in all these scenes.
He's very, yeah.
He's always pretty chill, but like he looks extremely chill in this.
And I like the way that he was actually used in this Lemire run. He's always been a little bit of I'm about to say like on the fringes kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, really cool. As he free falls through space on the next page, he hears voices saying things like "not working, increase the dosage," and "might need to try more aggressive methods." This seems to indicate that he might be still in the mental hospital, and all of this might be happening within the internal world of his mind. But he seems to not care about that, because he needs to see his quest through to the end. As I said earlier in this article, sometimes it's important to see these things through, even if it is all in Mark's head. It is a very real part of the structure of Mark's mind, and learning more about that can help Mark and his alters to understand themselves better. As he lands in an upside-down world, he sees people in ancient Egyptian peasant-looking garb fleeing from something. He starts to ask what's going on, but then turns around to see a very mean-looking man dressed in ancient Egyptian finery, riding a giant insect with a pyramid floating in the sky behind him. Oh, expletive deleted, indeed, Mr. Knight.
So I'd just add that not just peasant gear, but potentially slave gear. If we're talking about Jews in Egypt. So that's another little interesting, his people running off while he's left with the Egyptian overseer.
Yeah.
On a bug.
Yeah. on a bug, some sort of scarab or something. But it is interesting. It seems to be kind of well established, at least in this portion of the issue, because Mr. Knight is hearing those other voices like beyond, which would be like in the real world. So he seems to be going on a quest here. And I like what Leyna says about you've just got to go through it anyway. I mean that's kind of, I guess that justifies why Mr. Knight, despite what Crawley says no, look, I'm going to have to do this anyway. So yeah.
Sorry, I didn't. Is the next bit a new paragraph or like the same one? Because I think I may have interrupted you in the middle of a paragraph.
Oh no.
Like So it's as we end.
Oh, as we end. Oh, is that connected?
I think so.
Oh, okay. Should I just continue then?
Yeah, and then I'll do the next.
Okay. As we end on this upside-down cliffhanger, cliff climber, Khonshu decrees that it's time for ratings. As a comic book story, I really like this one a lot. Smallwood's art was superb, especially the extremely realistic facial expressions. Oh, yeah, absolutely. There were several bits of really creative visual storytelling, like the words fading in and out when Mark was eavesdropping, and the upside-down pages at the end. The plot was very compelling, the way it wove together the past and present with interesting revelations in both. From a purely story and art perspective, I'm going to give this one a nearly full moon at 9.5 out of 10. Well, Leyna, you wouldn't be far off from, I'm assuming, what Rebecca and I and Khonshu probably gave it as well.
I'm sure we gave. I don't think we gave any of these particularly bad scores. So.
I think we exceeded 10.
It's probably an embarrassment. It'd be very funny to look back and see what we gave them.
I think we ended like 13, 15 out of 10. We're going a bit silly there, but
yeah. I'll carry on because there's this. However, I don't think I'm going to be quite as generous when it comes to representation of mental health. Mm-hmm. The depiction of the DID itself wasn't too horrible. It was somewhat inaccurate, but not necessarily stigmatizing. But the depiction of the mental health profession left a lot to be desired. I'm not going to go over every point of it again, since I already explained it in depth earlier in the article. But Lemire showed the psychiatrist being a lot harsher in his treatment recommendations than what would likely have happened in real life. Mm-hmm. This is a common problem in fictional stories about mental health professionals and can unfortunately lead to people being more afraid than they should be to take their children to therapy or to seek help for themselves. I don't think Lemire was necessarily trying to paint the psychiatrist as a villain, but I think writers of fiction need to be more careful with how they portray mental health professionals because many people already have a lot of fears about seeking treatment for mental health issues. And after all, avoiding treatment for mental health can be just as dangerous and potential as avoiding treatment for physical health. Absolutely, mm-hmm. And that is the takeaway, and that is why these things should get checked.
Yes.
Is even though this on its own might not be enough to put someone off going to therapy, the drip of getting it in all forms of media.
Absolutely.
I mean, like,
yep.
You know, like my best friend had to go to therapy when she was very young. Mm-hmm. She was absolutely terrified and just lied to them, which was bad because, you know, she absolutely could have done with help. Yeah. I was made to go. We had to get a family therapy after my mum died. I literally just shut down. It's like, I'm no interest in this. And it's just like, these things are all things that could help you. And,
yes.
And again, one of the better things about modernity is that we are less stigmatized about, there is less stigma about getting your mental health seen to as your physical health, and absolutely has effects one to the other.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I mean, by that same token as well, then there's no reason why writers can't portray, I guess, psychiatrists in a decent light.
I'm hoping we'll start to see more of that because I think sometimes when you're trying to compress storylines, it's easy to get to the most serious treatment first, but there are ramifications to pop culture crossover of these things. The other idea is, you know, like having better depictions in one form so that other forms can have some of these, like, but, you know, but overall the picture has been bad and I think is getting better.
Yes, it has. Yeah, for sure. With this article, though, I think it's great. I think Leyna's distilled it in this, basically saying, look, Lemire hasn't gone out to make the psychiatrist a villain. It's just something that
it's just something that's kind of
for his purpose, for the writing to get from A to B. He's used the psychiatrist in such a way, but the ramifications, as you say, Rebecca. You know, the drip of having psychiatrists portrayed like this each and every time. It can't help. So I can imagine, because I know this is something that Leyna really feels strongly for. You know, just the stigmatization of, like, psychiatrists and professionals in this field. So I mean, I did not. So I think this is a big takeaway because I did not pick this up on my initial read, like many of the things that Leyna had mentioned. But just something as simple as that, you know, as simple as that psychiatrist being harsh in his conversation with Mark's father, you know, that speaks volumes, you know. So yeah, it's great pickup, Leyna, and yeah, fantastic. It's great to see this issue like in a different light or under a different kind of lens.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So finally, Leyna closes out with, however, I will admit that the portrayal of the psychiatrist could have been worse. At this point, he was just talking to Mark's father about treatments. It wasn't specified how long Mark was going to have to stay in the mental health facility, and the shock therapy was only hinted at, not explicitly stated or shown. So with that, and the fact that Mark and his alters weren't shown in a negative light, it gains a few points. But I think I do need to take up several points due to the importance of showing a more positive representation of mental health professionals. So I will rate this one at a waning gibbous 6 out of 10 for the mental health aspect, for an overall average of a barely waxing gibbous 7.75 out of 10. I love 2 decimal places. Let's go.
But not bad. Not bad, though.
Not bad at all. That's all I have for now, but I'll be back with another article next time. Until then, may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Thank you very much, Leyna. Awesome stuff. I did withhold from saying next month. I know we spoke just online about saying that, I guess, well, it could be next month, but we're looking to the next Understanding DID sometime in the new year. So, yeah. That's pretty much how it worked. We did, as Rebecca mentioned at the top of the show, we have come a bit late with discussing this part, so so now it actually works out fine. But yeah, no, thank you so much, Leyna. Rebecca, it's fantastic going through these articles.
Yes, it's always fun. It's fascinating, and I don't know why I feel like I say sorry again. Just like I have lots of questions. I don't want to be offensive, but I am so happy that DID systems have come in to educate us about this.
Yeah,
Leyna especially, but everyone else. And it's great to have you in the community, and it is really it's something we should all take on board and learn more about. Everything we can, and this is such a great resource, so thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually I also want to give another shout out to another Looney, part of a DID system as well, Jay Bird. So Leyna is great in giving this information as well, but there are a couple other loonies out there who have been instrumental in kind of voicing DID. We have a channel on Discord. Thanks again to Leyna. We're setting that up. It's called Understanding DID. So if you have, let's keep the conversation going. If you have any other questions or you'd like to ask Leyna something directly. Yeah, it's really interesting as well. Some great conversations, which I unfortunately tend to just read and dip in and out of because I'm so busy when I get to them. Yep. But yes, thank you to everyone helping us through this. Sure. Rebecca, you asked me to remind you of something.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm in this comics Discord, and I'm just trying to find the comment. I woke up. I didn't reply to this because I don't have the energy. So they were talking about the age of Khonshu and whether Moon Knight has superpowers or not. And these are people who are comic readers, and there's a lot of uncertainty. So it seems that these are a lot of the questions we're going to get. Does Mark have superpowers?
Right.
Are his superpowers tied to lunar phases? And is he just a peak human? So expect to be asked about that. I didn't want to get involved in it because again, it was something I read at 6 a.m. when we were really talking about Free Comic Book Day title, which is Avengers X-Men. So without the verses. So So, but it was a kind of a weird thing to wake up to because we hadn't been talking about Moon Knight. So this was kind of interesting. So,
interesting.
I like when it crops over, and I think there is a lot of confusion about that because it's just been different per run.
It has, and things have been added onto it as well. You know, the Bemis run. So it's pretty hard to track. But yeah.
I just think I was like going, I don't want to wake up and have to write this. Well, it's a little bit, it depends what you take from here or what you take from there or whatever. There. You know, so it's another interesting thing to sort of posit for, see what happens, see how Jed's run plays out with that, and also for the TV show, like which way they go with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we saw on that teaser him leaping across those buildings, so there's kind of
there's definitely some
yeah. But look, hey, I think just the answer is he can do anything. I mean, he's been known to have powers, and he sometimes doesn't. So yeah, I don't know where it lies now. He seems to be superpowered because, he's...
I think he does. I mean, like, personally, I think he does. I don't see how...
You can't survive.
I think he does. I don't know if I'd be able to say exactly what they are all the time, but I think he does. So I was excited to wake up and see people randomly talking about Moon Knight. I think.
That's so cool.
Like, I was just, that's kind of cool. So expect a lot more of that. And also, if anyone's been following the Hawkeye series and... all the amazing t-shirts. It definitely has the best range of t-shirts of any
t-shirts.
So like, save your money now for Moon Knight is all I'm saying. And in news, I saw a heavy rumor last night that Moon Knight is the next show.
Yes, from the Disney Plus in Spain, apparently.
Yeah.
They
said what the order of the next shows are.
Yeah. So Rebecca,
which is what we're assuming. I know. Like, I really want there to be an episode. I really want there to be an episode on my birthday, which is a Wednesday. So
that's so cool.
Like,
if it does, then I don't know. We're gonna have to do something. We're gonna have to.
We'll have. I'll definitely be making a cake. Don't worry. Awesome. The Marvel cakes will be restored for a Moon Knight issue.
Could you make one of like Bushman's face?
No, because I personally don't feel that that's an important thing to show. That'd probably be the most controversial comment I've ever made on the podcast. But I personally will not be screaming into the void if we do not see Bushman's face ripped off.
I just thought it'd be quite grisly to have a ripped off face as a cake.
I don't want to eat that. Yeah, but you're not going to have to eat it. It's what you forget in that race.
That's true.
Me and my family are the ones eating that.
Yeah, dig in.
I honestly do think February, March is.
Oh my god!
Because so many of the books are coming out.
I'm with you. I'm just very excited. I'm just like, I can't believe it.
Can I also just say once again, Oscar Isaac's birthday is the same day as mine. So.
Oh my gosh! Really?
So it would, So like, it would be kind of cute to have that as either a start or end date. So it's all coming together.
It is. Oh gosh, just. Oscar, I hope...
It's not going to be hard to buy me a birthday present this year, is it, really? I'll be like,
there's no excuse,
Moon Knight t-shirts. Just Moon Knight t-shirts, yeah.
Yeah, t-shirts or any other, like, socks. I'm sure he's got socks already. There should be something else, I'm sure.
I want some socks. I wouldn't mind
superhero stuff.
They did some Hawkeye socks. I'm not going to superhero stuff. They charge a fortune for delivery.
They do Hawkeye ones as well, do they?
They did. I think Amazon have got somewhere had some socks.
Nice. Well, I can't wait as well because I think Ben Reilly's getting his resurgence as well, so I'm looking forward to get some.
He's good, right?
Paraphernalia.
He's doing well.
Yeah.
So I hear it's good.
Yeah. I've been following Amazing Spider-Man, so I can't wait for his own title next year. Anyway, Loonies, we are kind of steering away. If we were a boat, we'd be floating away now, Rebecca and I, into the moors somewhere.
We'd be drifting off into New Egypt somewhere.
Exactly. Rebecca, a huge thank you. As always, it's always fun. You bring so much insight as well, like on top of Leyna's stuff. So can't thank you enough, of course, as well as just having fun chatting with you.
Yeah, it's always fun to talk Moon Knight and to be around that. I forgot to say at the start when you were talking about your previous episodes, everyone has been really on top form in recent episodes.
Oh, yes, they have, yeah.
Thank you to everyone who has appeared and been around, because I've greatly enjoyed them. Even if I don't always go online to say I've greatly enjoyed them, I have.
It's very awesome. It's good stuff, Rebecca. Have you got any shows that you'd like to plug? I know that you're on a couple. But,
doing DCAU a lot at the moment. So if you ever want to watch the DCAU and here are my stupid thoughts as someone who doesn't know that much about DC.
A big thank you, a big congrats on the 50th, by the way, as well.
Thank you.
I did listen, and yes, if you haven't filled in that slot, I wouldn't mind talking. What was it, The Killing Joke? I think you guys were talking about.
Oh my god, awesome! Yes, come do The Killing Joke. That'll be around Christmas. I didn't do the last Immortal Iron Fist, but I'm going to be on the next Immortal Iron Fist one that we're going to record next week. So we're doing Heroes for Hire from the 80s. So it's got like UFOs and the Eternals and Black Knight and Herc and Jim Hammond, and it's all over the place. Wow, that's wacky. It's all over the place, but it's kind of a fun run, and then hopefully we'll get onto Immortal Iron Fist soon. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, listeners. Both of those shows will be in the show notes. The main pages for them, DCAU and the Sons of the Dragon and Immortal Iron Fist podcast. Next phase, I think we're heading towards Rebecca. Potentially, we'll be seeing you again. I do believe I've just get my diary sorted. Could be a new issue. I think so. So we'll can't wait for that. I mean, we were left with such a great issue last time. So check out our social media sites for just more information as that comes to hand as well. There'll of course be a discussion thread, just where you can plonk in all your thoughts on the issue, and we can bounce off them when we discuss them ourselves.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. As always, our patronies, patreon.com/ITK Moon Knight. Please consider becoming a Patreon member. It will go a long way. I'm thinking of, anyway, I'm just thinking a lot about other stuff. About, just how to make the show bigger and better. A big thank you to, of course, Daniel, Drew, Justin, Derek, Kyle, Wayne, Jordan, Josh, James, Anthony, Russell, Michael, Mario, and Gavin. Thank you so much, every one of you. It's really great. All of it goes towards the show. More bells and whistles, more kind of, more quota for the podcast. Podcasting data, whatever you call it. CLZ COMICS, Collectorz.com. Check them out. For something, it's really measly. This is Australian dollars, I think. It's $2.49 a month. It's very, very small. Consider, using it to organise your comic book collection or other, maybe your music collection or your book collection. Fringe Night by Daniel Doing, his Patreon page, patreon.com/FringeNight27. Go check it out. Daniel is a legend, and he's done great work with his independent creator-owned stuff. As mentioned at the top of the show as well, Drew Tombz on SoundCloud, so that is soundcloud.com/TOMBZZ, and also Drew's on Bandcamp at LURKMUSICK, so LURKMUSICK with a CK.bandcamp.com. And finally, Dreamland Comics, you can get 20% off if you use the promo code MOON. And incidentally as well, I just wanted to remind everyone, Drew was on a couple of episodes ago as well, so you can hear his sweet sounds there.
Yeah, he was great. And Ozzy's just come to give everyone a cuddle as he says goodbye. He's giving me a cuddle on behalf of everyone.
Good old Ozzy. What is an ITK episode without a cat? With a cat.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
he's in my arms at the end.
And finally, we're part of the collective. So similar to what we mentioned earlier, DCAU, the DC Animated Universe podcast, which Rebecca features on, or Sons of the Dragon, an Immortal Iron Fist podcast, again with Rebecca and the likes of Connor, Carl, and Omar. Go check it all out. There's so many great shows banding about under the moniker of #TheCollectiveNet. And finally, you can email us at feedback@itkmoonnight.com. We've got a website, itkmoonnight.com. On Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Discord, Get Vocal, and Podchaser. Chuck us your thoughts. Again, let us know what you thought about this segment of Understanding DID, any questions you may have. It's really great to just chat and interact with fellow Moon Knight fans. And incidentally, any reviews would be very much appreciated. Get them in before the end of the year.
I should do one. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. But seriously, yeah. I mean, they help a long way to get the show out there a bit more. So, cool. Well, Rebecca and Ozzy, it's about lunchtime there, isn't it? I think.
It's about I think that may be why Ozzy's in my arms.
Timing.
Even though cats do not get lunch.
Oh no. Can tell that there's food about to be served.
About to be prepared. Yeah,
Yes, yeah. With that as well, I'm about to, I don't know, probably head off to bed soon. But but thanks again, Rebecca, and
take care.
Take care, and as we all say, may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Catch you later.
Bye.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.
There's a lot of comic book podcasts. There's podcasts for Moon Knight, comic book supervillains, Werewolf by Night, Ghost Rider, about 1 billion for Spider-Man, Batman, the X-Men. But there seems to be a void in comic book podcasts. And I just can't take it anymore. I just can't take it.